St. James, we know, well, we're pretty sure that St. James, after the death and resurrection of Jesus, went to what we now know as Spain and preached in Galatia. And after he had spent some time there, returned to Jerusalem. In the year 42, he was beheaded by Herod. And his disciples, there are various stories about this, but the disciples took his body back to Spain. Some say that it was washed up in a boat. But the tradition has always been that St. James was taken back to Spain. And in the year 813, a shepherd out in the fields was drawn to a star. And Compostela means the field of stars. So it's Santiago de Compostela. Santiago, the Spanish word for St. James, Santiago, and Compostela, the field of stars. So the bishop at the time pronounced that it was the body that this shepherd found out in the field, found this grave. The bishop at the time pronounced it to be the tomb of the Apostle James, and since then it's had this great tradition of pilgrimage. It died out for some time, certainly in the medieval times. People came from all over Europe. People come now from all over the world, and there are various routes that people take. I took the route from St. John Pied de Port to Santiago. People start in Le Puy, in the middle of France. Some start down in the south of France. Others walk from wherever. I met people who had walked from Sweden, from Switzerland, and walked all the way. So it's a huge thing now. There are hundreds and hundreds of people, and especially this year, when the Feast of St. James falls on a Sunday, it's known as a Holy Year. So a lot of people want to get there as close as they can to the Feast of St. James on the 25th of July. I thought if I started towards the end of August that the crowds would all be gone, but they certainly were. There were thousands of people, especially as you get closer to Compostela, because some people do it in sections. I might do a couple of 100 kilometres one year and come back the next year, and you can do that, I guess, if you live in France or Germany. But if you come from this part of the world, you can't keep going back to Europe. But there were many people on the pilgrimage. So since that time, Compostela, that's the part of the cathedral, since that time of the discovery of the body of St. James, Santiago de Compostela, and the cathedral in particular, is a major pilgrimage site. It's always been known as one of the major pilgrimage sites of the world, Rome being the other, Jerusalem being the other. In the cathedral, which is massive, as you go up behind the high altar, there's an image of St. James right up high. And the tradition is that you walk up behind that, you hug the apostle and tell him what you want. Someone said to me that day, did he speak to you? And I said, no, but I spoke to him. And I told him, we need vocations for the archdiocese. Well, actually, I named all the guys. And then you come down from that, and sort of under the high altar is the place where the grave is at the moment. So, one of the great books that I read in preparation, there are many books if people are thinking of doing it, and I know some people are. There are many books, but this one, A Pilgrim's Guide to the Camino de Santiago by John Briley. My sister sent me this. There's a smaller edition which just has the practical things about where to go, how far, what facilities are available. But this book is wonderful. Because John Briley says things like this: I thank you, fellow pilgrim, for travelling the path with me. Let us remind each other that every step is a prayer, for good or ill. So let us manifest goodwill in all our thoughts, words and actions. And then throughout the book, with each of the sections, and I'll just open it at random here, each of the sections, he ends by talking about the particular section, which could be 21 kilometres, it could be 30 kilometres, it could be longer. But he ends each one with two little reflections, one called the practical path. And for example here, he says, yesterday over 80% of our journey was on natural paths, today it falls to less than half. And we have our first taste of the soulless modern sender. otherwise known as pilgrim highways. We've entered Palencia, which along with its neighbouring province of Leon, have engaged in a mindless modernisation program built on the back of too much wealth and too little afterthought. These senders are known as alternatives, where there is a possibility of another waymarked route. Though basically they were just footpaths built beside the highways, whereas in other places they were paths off the road. And if there was an alternative path, I always took that because it was more picturesque and it was sometimes more historical. So he has this thing about the practical path, but then the next part he always follows is the mystical path. And in this particular one, he says, each step takes us nearer our destination, but where are we headed? Today we walk 20 kilometres or around 21,000 steps, and we can choose to make each step a prayer for peace as we walk into the 21st century. Humanity is coming of age and we hold the key to a new era. The choice is ours as to which way we turn it. But we have only two real choices. We can add to the problem or become part of the solution. Know that the choice we make will imbue the next millennia with either love or fear. May each step we take be blessed as we awaken to the purpose of our own life. I didn't take this particular book with me because you have to be very conscious of how much weight you're carrying. So I took a slimmer version which just had the actual practical details, but I'd had plenty of time over the last 12 months to read some of those and continuing to read them because there are some wonderful reflections there. So that was a great thing to help me to think about the purpose that is a pilgrimage. At the end of the book, in introducing the Camino, he says, whichever path you take, fellow pilgrim, travel well, and let us remind each other to make every step a prayer for peace. Now, of course, people come with their own intentions. Initially, as the pilgrimage began to gather momentum, and particularly in early years, it was, as all pilgrimage, and reparation for sin and for forgiveness for sin. And I think anyone doing the pilgrimage seriously reflects on that. But as many of you know, and certainly as some of the schools know, it's good to see some school students here tonight, the schools know that my intention was to try to make every step a prayer for vocations. And the reason I did that was that, clearly we need more vocations in the church today, and make the whole thing all the way along a prayer. And that's why I really walked alone most of the time. There was a little time when I walked with Caroline and Peter, but I really did want to make it a pilgrimage and to have the time to reflect and to ponder and to, as I say, make every step a prayer for vocations. So I started, as I said, at St. John Peter Paul in France and walked to Santiago, and I kept a little in the journal sort of how many kilometres I'd walked each day, and it was roughly 850, although it was probably, by the time you walk around big cities and things, when you get there in the day, a lot more, but on the actual track about 850. As I said, I mostly walked alone, saw many wonderful sights. There is beautiful scenery. There are long paths, many long paths. There's a place called the Meseta, and you walk across this Meseta for 7 or 8 days, I guess, and it's spectacular scenery at times, absolutely spectacular scenery. There are places of great historical interest. This little place, and you read about all these places in these kind of books, the monastery of St. Felix, way back in the 9th century, but that's the monastery. It's really just a tiny little hermitage. So, but fascinating when you see those kind of things, and you read about them in the books, and you think, well, yeah, I'll try and find that along the way, because it is of great interest. There are beautiful churches, many beautiful churches. This little church here is a place called, in a town called Fromista, and it's the Church of San Martin. There are, it's known particularly for its architecture, and it's right in the middle of the village square. The point about this for me was that I got into this village sort of early afternoon, and that morning That morning, the book said, be ready to climb this very steep hill as you're coming out of a place called Castelroge. And so I'm plodding up this hill with my pack on, and everyone kept passing. And I thought, why am I going so slow today? Then I suddenly realised not one of them had a pack or was carrying anything. And got to this little village, and I saw them all go to a bus and get their little trolleys and But I went into this church later, and all these people were there, and they were a choir from Germany. And they were singing, it was just magnificent. They were just singing magnificent. And they sang a couple of Taizé chants. And I thought, I'm going to go and ask them if they know the Taizé Magnificat, because I love the Taizé Magnificat. So I thought, I stood up and I went over to ask them, and they started singing. Just like that. I didn't have to ask them. It was just amazing. And one of the other things for me about music, I walked into the church of San Domenico de Canzada, and as the cathedral, it has a story behind it too, but I went in there and there was just beautiful music playing, just magnificent music, and I thought, I haven't listened to music for weeks really, or for some days, and I'm missing it, because all the time I have the concert program on, or CDs or iPod or something, just with lovely music on, lovely music for me. And I thought, when I went into this church, I thought, I'm missing it. And I was thinking about it the next day as I walked along, and as I plodded along thinking, I should have brought my iPod. No, I didn't need to bring my iPod, I don't need that. But the message was very clear, but this is the music all around you, just the scenery, the open space, this is the music. Enjoy this moment. And from there on, I didn't bother about music anymore, because this is what's been given to me at the moment. Enjoy it and appreciate it. So as I walked, what did I pray? Well, I began by, at the beginning, I thought, well, I've got this time, I'll pray the rosary. So I did. And every fourth decade, every time I prayed a fourth decade, that was the intention for that was for vocations. But the others were always for somebody here or something in the diocese. But I always made the fourth decade a prayer for vocations. I prayed other little prayers, such as this little Celtic chant, "Circle me, O God, keep hope within and despair without. Circle me, O God, keep faith within, keep doubt without." But the beauty about that prayer is that you can put any words in there. So, I mean, I've used this for years. You can say, "Circle me, O God, keep patience within, keep impatience without. Circle me, O God, keep love within, keep hatred without." Whatever words you feel, or I feel like I see. There was another one I prayed too. The love of God flowing free, the love of God flow out through me. The peace of God flowing free, the peace of God. So you could put whatever word you wanted in there too. So I prayed those prayers, and as I started, I began by praying the mystery of the day. For example, say it was a Wednesday, I prayed the glorious mysteries. And then I think, oh well, I've said the rosary. And I thought, well, I've never done this before, but why don't I pray all the decades of the rosary? So, as I walked, I prayed the joyful, sorrowful, glorious, and the mysteries of light. So, and I'd never done that, but I had the time to do it, and again, it was a good thing to do. This is just one of the little wayside shrines along the way, and again, the sculpture is there. Because the rosary was also sort of the rhythm of praying. I'd had a pair of rosary beads that were given to me many years ago, and a little wooden cross that was given to me, not the one that you gave me, Kevin, but another one, years ago, and on one day I lost them both. And I was so disappointed because the rosary beads I'd had for years, and they were great, you know, light, easy and durable. But I thought, well, at least these things, so it was easy to buy another pair of rosary beads. So, you know, and again, it's part of life, disappointments, how do you handle them? Because the pilgrimage is very much reflecting on your own life and what's happening for you. I can't sing, but I did sing as I went along. And I sang Taizé chants and various psalms. A couple of psalms in particular, the Lord's my shepherd, I sang that or prayed that a lot. And Psalm 95, the one that we pray every day at the beginning of the prayer of the church, "If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts." Because I love that term. So those kind of things too, I prayed and reflected on as I walked along. And of course then you came to these incredible places. This is a place called, that bridge is called La Puente de Reina, the bridge of the kings. And it's, you know, it's a story about the Spanish kings, at the time of the Spanish kings, and how this village was a refuge for them. So there were many things. And then one day, as I was walking along, and I thought it would be good to have a sort of a theme hymn or a song, something that sort of sums this all up for me. And it was early morning. And as soon as I did it, as soon as I said that, I thought, I know what it is. It was the early morning. And it took me about a minute to think about it. This again was a moment of grace. It's not I didn't sing on it, but I knew that it was the right thing and just summed it up for me. It was that when little mortal flesh keep silence. And for me it was, I can't express all this. I can't sum up what this all is. This is all bigger than me. And all I can do is just be silent in God's presence. So it was a powerful moment because I just thought of it, and as I say, it came to me just like that. Now that's not a hymn that I know very well. I mean, I could sing the first verse and then I kept singing the first verse. But so I thought, okay. So that's the first verse of it. "Let all mortal flesh keep silence, and with fear and trembling stand. Ponder nothing earthly minded, for with blessing in his hand Christ our God to earth descended, our full homage to deny. There were so many times where I could do nothing else but just keep silence. That I was, as I was saying, I was overcome with gratitude and wonder and looking around and having the time to reflect and ponder. So I thought that we might sing it. But it means somebody else has to start. No, I can't. So for me it was a powerful thing to come to mind, and particularly, as I say, that first verse, at those moments when words can't express what's happening. The mortal flesh keeps silence, and with fear and trembling stand. And what else can you do in God's presence but just with great reverence just be there? So, and part of that was these kind of things. Seeing scenes like this as you trudged up this was part of the steepest part of the whole Camino, but just magnificent sights back down and into the valleys. So you look at something like that and you think, well, what's my response to this? It could only be that all mortal flesh keeps silence. However, there was also another reason I took that further. You can just see that little figure there. That was a woman pushing a pram with all her belongings in it. And I thought, I don't know how this woman is doing this, because there were places where it was so rocky and so uneven, like even for me, reasonably strong and fit, going from stone to stone. This woman was pushing a pram. So I thought, I can't just take a photo of her just straight in front of her. You saw some amazing sights. So, again, that's one of those moments of silence. This was another one. on the footpath, on the actual paths, time and time again, where hundreds of people are walking, all these little crocuses popping up. I kept thinking, how can they be popping up at this time of the year? It's usually in springtime. No, it wasn't springtime then. And there's people walking over this. And commented on it a few times to people. Yeah, it's just amazing. They're everywhere. So those were times too. Great. I mean, something very simple, but crocuses growing up out of the barren Elizabeth Park wasn't quite so bad. I just had put some of these in just to show that what my response was at times. This was this monastery at Samos, the Benedictine monastery. Huge building, absolutely magnificent. And the thing, I haven't shown them on here, but they have modern frescoes. They have frescoes around the cloister, and they're certainly not like the frescoes you see in Italy. They're modern ones. And in one of them, I actually took the photo of it, it came out very well. The model for, it's a monastery of monks and sisters, and the model for one of the sisters on the wall was Sophia Loren. So I took photos. But it's a magnificent place, and just, you come across, it's quite a small, Samos is quite a small village, so there was plenty of time to wander around there and take all that in. What did I learn? Because this is all part of pilgrimage too, as I faced those high mountains or long paths, and I'd look up and think, will I ever get there? Back on my back. But, you just keep plodding and you do get there. And I really have applied that or thought about it, about some of the issues that face me in the diocese and the things that sometimes seem insurmountable, and I think, how will this ever resolve itself? But just keep being faithful and plodding along and staying with the task, and you will get there. So that was a lesson for me. Clearly, as I've spoken about, I just knew and was aware of being surrounded by the presence of God. And I think for me that was the beauty of walking mostly alone, because I had the opportunity to reflect on that. I've sort of said this before, but again, that all is gift. This is all a great gift. This is all a blessing. And to have the time to do that. And for me now to remember back to that, because it would be so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day things, but just to keep coming back to that. And again, this is a great lesson for me. There is time, there's plenty of time, because I panicked. How am I going to get this done? I've got so much to do. But there's time, there's plenty of it. There was certainly time along the way, and that was, again, a very important lesson for me. Just need to keep applying it. And I'm aware that I'm saying this tonight in the presence of my spiritual director, so no doubt I'll be challenged about some of this. And this and life was to be enjoyed, not endured, but the whole of life, everything that we do is to be enjoyed, not endured. Otherwise, there's no point just slogging us out and enduring it, enjoy it. And there were so many things that I could enjoy as I moved along. I can't remember what I've written this time. I'll just get back to that. I saw this little shelter. It was so beautiful, as the book describes it, this magnificent oak forest. And I saw this little stone shelter sort of tucked up against the tree. And I thought, there's a nice little spot. It was very hot, so I was popping there. But I got a rude awakening. It was full of all sorts of human, all sorts of things. Sorry, I didn't stay there. But again, like just seeing something like that, and seeing it from the outside, and thinking, what a beautiful little spot, and then discovering that it's full of human excrement. But this again was one of the quotes from John Brightney. Pay attention to the beauty of the outer landscape and the spirit of the inner journey. Listen what's going on inside, reflect on what's going on inside. What's causing you to be disappointed, what's causing you to think, will I ever get there? Why am I doing this? I was very lucky, I had no injuries, I was very blessed to have good health all the way. John Riley also said, you'll meet other, these are things we all know, but we need to be reminded of. You'll meet other pilgrims along the way, but above all, you may meet yourself and find that you are never alone. And that is surely the primary purpose of pilgrimage, and perhaps of life itself. So you can see that for me it wasn't It's called the Way of St. James, El Camino de Santiago, in Spanish of course, and in French, the Chemin de Saint-Jacques. And lots of people, most people on it would just refer to the Camino. That's one of the shots, just the first day of heading up the Pyrenees. I had been apprehensive, I suppose, about doing almost 27 kilometres straight up on the first day. And the morning that I walked out of the hostel and I thought I'm on my way, I put my pack on my back, and within 2 or 3 minutes it was bucketing there. Absolutely bucketing. So for the next 3 hours it just poured. I was saturated, boots and socks and everything was saturated. Then it stopped and I never had another drop of rain for the next 30 days. Which for me had been one of the sort of fears, what if it rains, you end up with blisters and all these sort of things. But I had no problems like that. So this is what I was doing, the Way of St. James, or the Camino. Caroline Upwood and her husband Peter, Caroline's husband, Caroline and Peter were on the Camino at the same time, and I bumped into them a few times along the way. So day one was up the Pyrenees, the first few hours in the rain. At the top of the Pyrenees, as you come to the French-Spanish border, there's the statue of Our Lady. Many people do it as I suppose a challenge to do the walk. I had set out, and again, many people do it as a pilgrimage, because that's what it's been famous for since the body of St. James was found. So you do see a lot of people praying along the way, and there are many aids to prayer and things that help you to reflect as you journey along. So day one was